Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to check the Air 5, a new 1:43 scale micro RC drift car by Sniclo. In this quick video I'm going to go over its features and specs, compare it with the other models by Sniclo, and provide you with my initial feedback after testing it out. First of all, in terms of packaging, the Air 5 comes inside this box. It contains the micro RC car, a new updated radio controller, 4 spare drifting tires, a spoiler, and a USB Type-A to a USB Type-C cable, which is used for charging the internal battery of the micro RC car. In terms of features and specs, the Air 5 is currently the biggest and most powerful micro RC car that was released by Sniclo. It weighs 92.9 grams, its length is 106 millimeters, its width is 44.2 millimeters, its height is 33.5 millimeters, the distance between the right and left wheels is 40 millimeters, and the distance between the front and back wheels is 61.5 millimeters. Here you can see the Air 5 next to other RC cars by Sniclo. These two are 1:76 scale micro RC cars, so the Air 5 is definitely bigger, and the SNT Niva is actually a 1:43 scale micro RC car as well. It weighs about the same as the SNT Air 5, but the Air 5 is a bit bigger. Here is a closer look, and as you can see, the Air 5 definitely has more presence than the smaller micro RC cars. As for the other specs of the Air 5, it features a 4-wheel drive system. There is no differential, so the wheels always move together. In addition, each wheel is individually suspended. Just like the other micro RC cars by Sniclo, on the top side of the car you can find a magnetic cover, which is going to enable you to attach an all-in-one FPV camera. This camera was not included with my version, however you can either purchase it separately or get a version that includes it. On the bottom side of the Air 5 you can find a USB Type-C port, which is used for charging its internal 500 mAh 1S LiPo battery. Over here you can find the power switch. Short pressing it is going to turn on the car. Short pressing it again is going to switch it off. And by holding the power switch for about 5 seconds, you are going to initiate binding mode, which is indicated by the flashing LEDs. The canopy of the Air 5 is magnetic, and by pulling the bottom side in the following manner, you'll be able to separate it from the main body. Pay attention though that the LEDs and the camera connector are connected to the main board using these JST connectors, so you should be careful when separating the main body from the canopy. Here you can see what it looks like when the main body is separated from the canopy. As far as I can tell, the build quality seems very good. The 500 mAh 1S LiPo battery is protected using these plastic parts, which also protect the main board. These parts are made out of metal, which is important, as in my experience, if they are plastic, they are very likely to break. So metal parts are going to ensure that the car is going to last longer. It's going to be relatively easy to replace these parts, which are used for the suspension system, and as far as I can tell, these are not very likely to break. However, replacing the servo that controls the front steering and maybe servicing other parts of the micro RC car can be a bit challenging. As for replacing the tires, it is done by simply removing the current one by pulling it, and then you can simply push the new one into the wheel. It's very easy to remove the rubber tires, but it's a bit trickier to remove the plastic drifting tires, so you should be careful when removing them, as you don't want to damage the wheels. Just to be on the safe side, my advice is when changing the tires is to remove the wheel completely by unscrewing this Phillips screw, and then you'll be able to remove the wheel and safely change the tire. So now, as you can see, I'm able to remove the drifting tire from the rim without adding extra pressure on this part. and I can easily place the rubber tire instead, put back the rim and secure it using this Phillips screw. Now, by the way, personally, I prefer driving the R5 with the rubber wheels, as driving it with the drifting wheels can be quite challenging, as it doesn't feature a built-in gyro. As for the new radio controller, it is very similar to the older one, and it is now included with all Sniclo's micro RC car. The bottom part is completely identical, so operating the radio controller is done by 3 AAA batteries, which are inserted into this compartment and then placed in the radio controller in the following manner. What is new in the new radio controller is the control of all the trims. So instead of using these buttons for controlling the steering and these 2 buttons for controlling the power, it is now done using these dials. These dials are also going to enable you to adjust the gyro, something which is not supported yet by the R5. So as far as I know, another version which should feature a built-in gyro is going to be released in the future. And you can also adjust the steering direction, which is something which is not supported by the previous radio controller. Adjusting the steering direction is still not supported by the R5, so probably it's going to be supported somewhere in the future. And by the way, whenever you are reaching the midpoint, the radio controller is going to beep. So for example, now I'm adjusting the steering. So this is all the way to the right and this is all the way to the left. And whenever the knob is set to the mid position, it is going to be indicated by a beeping sound. In addition, all these familiar 4 buttons are now located over here and they are indicated by a label next to them. So this is the matching button. In order to initiate the binding procedure, you'll need to long press it for about 5 seconds. And then the flashing LED is going to indicate that the radio controller is in binding mode. Next to it, you can find the FPV box button, which is going to turn on or off the camera, which is attached to the micro RC car. These 2 buttons control the LEDs. So the chassis button controls the color of the LEDs on the bottom of the micro RC car, and this one adjusts the headlights. Now on top of these 4 buttons, the new radio controller also features 3 new switches: brake, P1 and P2 switches. Whenever the switches are turned on, it is going to be indicated by an LED next to them. As far as I can tell, the brake switch is not in use by the R5. The P2 switch is not in use as well. However, the P1 button controls the lights. So you can see now the backlights are flashing, also the headlights, and when it is turned off, they are not. Finally, the on and off switch has been relocated from here to here, and as far as I can tell, this new position is more reliable, as in my experience, at some points it didn't turn on or off the radio controller correctly, and the radio controller just randomly turned off when you either accidentally pressed the switch or maybe the quality of this switch wasn't good enough. And anyway, the new switch looks and feels much more reliable. Besides these upgrades, 2 things were removed on the newer radio controller. So on the older one, you can find this port for attaching accessories. Probably Sniclo thought that users don't need them, or maybe they just removed it in order to save some space. And on top of that, on the older radio controller, you can find this USB Type-C port for charging the micro RC car. And as you can see, it is no longer present on the newer radio controller. Now, in terms of compatibility, both radio controllers are using the exact radio transmission system, which means that the R5 can be controlled using the older radio controller, and the older Sniclo versions can be controlled using the new one. So for example, now I'm turning on the radio controller, turning on this car, enter bind mode by long pressing the button, and then I'm going to long press the matching button. And now, as you can see, the micro RC car is bound, and I can use it using the new radio controller. As for driving the R5, which is of course the most important part, in my opinion, it is very fun to drive. It can get quite fast, and the runtime should be between 30 to 60 minutes, depending how much you are pushing the throttle. It can be definitely something that you can take to a mini Z course, and you cannot use it on smaller courses like the 1:76 scales micro RC cars. You should make sure that you have enough space to use it in your house, as this is not something that you can use outdoors, and you should only run it on flat surfaces, as you cannot drive it on a carpet, even if you're using the rubber tires. As for adding an all-in-one FPV camera, in my opinion, the R5 is a little bit too fast to drive it in FPV. Personally, I'm going to get a headache if I'm going to try to drive it with my goggles using the all-in-one FPV camera, but of course it's up to you, and it's nice to be able to control the camera in FPV or use the camera to record your driving. As I've mentioned earlier, you can expect up to 60 minutes of runtime without the FPV camera, and probably closer to 30 minutes including it, and fully charging the 500 mAh 1S LiPo battery should take you about 50 minutes. So overall, I'm very impressed with this little micro RC car. My son loves driving it, and he will improve his drifting skills, which are probably better than my skills. The only problem that I found with the build quality is that this plastic part comes off very easily. So in case you would like to make it permanently stick to the canopy, you should probably use some super glue. And I'm looking forward to more models that are going to be released by Sniclo. Probably the version with the built-in gyro is going to be even more fun to drive when drifting the car. Anyway, that's going to do it for this quick video. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments section down below. I wish you all happy driving, and I'll see you soon on my next videos. Goodbye.